now the moment that we are all looking forward to, that is the conclusive remark Ring will offer us. Professor Diane Ring is Interim Dean of Faculty and Professor of Law and a distinguished scholar at Boston College Law. Dear Diane, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Costa. Yesterday, in my concluding remarks, I sought to emphasize the reality that under the sort of broad topic of our sort of two-day conference, sort of themes of misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, we were seeing issues emerging at every level of whether it's business, society, government, just at every level. We were seeing all kinds of information problems. We were seeing all kinds of actors being touched, being involved, and we saw every possible topic or substantive area, again, being subject to issues of information quality. Today, I hope you've held that in mind. As you transition from yesterday to today, I hope that you held that kind of core thought in mind, because I think our first panel, which was on scientific integrity and whistleblowers, powerfully reflected actually all of that complexity. And so if you think back to the first panel, we saw whistleblowers in a central role. We saw challenges created by crisis moments. We saw financial and corporate incentives having a powerful ability to undermine the pursuit of truth in information. And we saw the role of media, both positive and negative. Right. Today, what I'd like to do is add another sort of theme or lens. And I think of these as all sorts of different ways to get a handle on what is a truly massive topic. And so the additional lens I'd like to sort of offer us today is to think about how the sort of malinformation can also be seen as something, a sort of set of problems in two big buckets. And the first bucket are those problems with information that are really created or perpetrated or furthered by those with a clear duty, whether it's contractual, legal, regulatory, but a clear duty or obligation to provide true and complete information. These could be governments, businesses, organizations, regulated bodies, right? But they have some type of affirmative duty. And so we saw problems that fall into that bucket. There's a second bucket, and that's really involving those who are sharing information actively, passively, right? But who have really less of an obvious duty to be truthful, to be complete in what they're sharing. And this really is part of the discussion we've had about the reality of modern technology and the easy capacity for virtually anyone, anywhere, to communicate on an essentially global platform. And that reality combined with themes of loss of trust across sort of many in society has led to sort of a popular level of sharing of information, whether it's knowing, unknowing, or indifferent to the truth, but another place of really problems with information. And then finally, as between those two buckets, they're obviously connected in many ways. For example, there are entities which may be facilitating or amplifying the sort of problematic information of the public who may not have a strong duty, but those that are facilitating or amplifying may in fact themselves have some real obligations. Okay. So I come to the question, you sat for the past 2 days. How do you use this information? How do you use these 2 days of a conference going forward? The first thing I guess I'd say is I hope it energizes you. In whatever sort of aspect of your work this connects with. Second and related, I hope it sparks some real creativity in how you appreciate risks, problems, issues, it really in 2 ways, right? Both to reduce the actual risks of problems in truth and accuracy of information, but also to manage the actual cases of mis, dis, or malinformation. And so real creativity in how we address both of those prongs. I talked a little bit yesterday about the range of techniques that we were seeing emerge in our conversations. And so I touched on that in my closing remarks yesterday. I don't want to repeat all that, but what I'd like to do is add some additional sort of valuable notes to that. So some of the additional pieces that emerged in our sessions today include the following, right? For whistleblowers, the importance of finding allies, individuals and groups, keeping records, and seeking legal assistance, right? So just having those as 3 key missions if you're really thinking about whistleblowing. The idea that we sort of could have problems that we could describe as a single breach in a sense of truth and accuracy. And we also can have really system errors, but also connections between the two. It's really the kinds of problems we have, and therefore places where we might want to think about reforms. But I thought one of the remarks about this was really a good reminder of how to approach this entire project, right? We're not looking for, and it was described as, a single panacea or a complete solution. There is no such end goal out there. It's a process of moving always towards better, more accurate, more fulsome information, right? What else would I suggest here, right? Well, I thought an interesting observation about the difference between safeguards and safety nets. Again, thinking about all the different kinds of techniques and where they fit in the process of reducing risk and then solving actual problems of misinformation. So I thought that was another nice frame. There's, I thought, really important conversation about the need to continue to reframe in society the role of the whistleblower. And that had both a cultural, social dimension, but it also really, I thought, touched upon mechanisms for sharing information and the protection of whistleblowers, right? That goes hand in hand with a reframing of what does it mean to be a whistleblower. And I thought, again, we hear this, repeatedly, can never be said too much, looking carefully at NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, and sort of really what should be their place. Interesting point about how do you sanction the powerful? This came up yesterday. It came up again today, and that's kind of, remember I said 2 buckets, that, those who have obligations and duties and those who might not. Often the powerful may, by virtue of being in government or in positions of regulated business, etc., have some obligations, formal obligations, but really are the sanctions that they face sufficient? And then finally, our last panel hit some genuinely exciting ideas about using both technology and education, right, as part of a package of trying to increase the level of high quality information in society. Finally, just one last point. If you are a researcher or an advocate in the area of information, I encourage you to treat this as not just today's event or the 2-day event, but to use the website and its resources, as well as a related site, the Corporate Crime Observatory website, as places that you can go back to and find prior programs, recordings, reports, and other individuals with whom you can connect. So I would treat those as sort of live resources for you. Today is a day to kind of get those ideas in your head, but the resources will be there ongoing. And it's a great place to touch base as you continue your own path in working with issues and information. So I hope you had a wonderful 2 days with us. We were just thrilled to have you join us. Costa, I will turn it back to you.
Diane, thank you so much for brilliantly navigating these complex issues and offering such inspiring conclusion. And thank you so much, everybody, for staying with us up to this very final moment. And thank you again.